Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome. Welcome to the 10K Project. We hope you're doing well today. Don't forget to put your city and state in the chat so we can recognize you. Put your city and state in the chat so we can recognize you. We hope that you are doing well today. We have a special guest who is coming in, Mr. Camari Ellis, AKA the Finance Rebel. He's going to come in to talk about getting your money right. Money. We have Vanessa here from the Bronx. We've got Dee from Seattle, Angela from Lincoln, Alabama, Kimberly from St. Louis. We got Natasha from New York here. Hello, everybody. As you all are coming into YouTube, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to also subscribe to the channel. On this channel and in this community, the 10K Project is the largest community of investors who actively fund Black-owned businesses. And we do that through something called a Bet on Black pitch. The way that it works is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, we invite an entrepreneur to come and present his or her business to us. And the way that this is done is through something called equity crowdfunding. Equity crowdfunding is a fancy term for a bunch of people getting together, putting money into a pot in order to fund that business. And these investments are actually governed by the Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA, which stands for the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. I think I said it right, but it's FINRA. And the way that it works is kind of like Shark Tank, but you get to be an investor for as little as $100 oftentimes is the minimum. We have all sorts of people who come in to talk about various industries, whether it's the entrepreneurs come from technology, products, services, restaurants. We had last week a cannabis company from Detroit come in. We have all sorts of people who come in to talk to us. But right now, the person we got in the house, Mr. Barry White himself, aka Camari Ellis. Hello, Camari. And you're on mute.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, can hear you.
Good. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. So the topic for tonight is get your money right. We're going to give people a couple more minutes to come in, but tonight's going to be a little different, and we'll see if Tawana is able to make it. I'm going to do something a little different tonight. We're going to talk about stocks and investing and preparing for the recession. We have our members only mastermind tomorrow night with regards to that.
Okay.
But I'm going to be a little messy as well, messy in the investing point of view. I'm also going to talk about BLM and the tax / I'm going to say alleged fraud issues that they're facing, because Camari has been studying that and he did a really great live stream. I'm also going to talk about Walmart trademarking Juneteenth for its ice cream. If you don't know about that, you can Google it, but the news came out today and it is everywhere. And I have some thoughts about that. So that'll be slightly messy. That's my version of messy, in this sector. Yeah.
It's not messy.
I do minimum amounts of messy, but
you telling the truth, that's all. It's the difference between being messy and being a truth teller.
Well, look. So, all right then. So everybody, again, the10kproject.com. If you're not a member, you want to come to participate in what we're doing. We not only fund Black-owned businesses, but we also are buying businesses. So there's another mastermind that's coming up for people who want to buy businesses. You can learn how to buy a business, and Tawana closed on her business last week, along with some other people. So we're buying businesses. I got a call today for somebody to potentially come and lead the stock market mastermind. So hopefully that will be coming. We're looking to do a real estate mastermind in the fall. That one's going to be really good, real estate investing. So here, we don't want to just give you education, which is a big part of it, but we also want to help you find opportunities and source those opportunities as well. So what we are working on is being a curator of opportunities so that once you get the knowledge, you can kind of come in, look at a potential deal and say, yeah, this is something that I would want to get into and actually invest and do group investing and group economics. So with that, let's get started with Camari. So Camari Ellis is with Philly Tax Team. He is from Philadelphia, born and raised, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. He does taxes. He talks about business, stock, investing. He has did you start off on Facebook?
I started on radio and then things kind of migrated to YouTube and Facebook kind of all at the same time.
Okay, because I know your YouTube channel is blowing up now. You're doing some great things on YouTube. So
I'm trying to get it there.
You're working on it. So the Finance Rebel is his YouTube channel and I know you have an Instagram as well, right?
Yep, you can find me everywhere. The Finance Rebel Instagram podcast. The name of the podcast is the Finance Rebel Show. So you can find me everywhere under the Finance Rebel.
Find him everywhere, your method of getting this information. He's really great because he breaks down like real life scenarios as they're happening, what's happening in the stock market, what's happening with taxes, understanding what you can and can't deduct, all of those things. So, and he's also the author of an article that we reviewed, I want to say last year, called The Guide to Black Wealth, which was one of my favorite articles. So it's on Medium, from what I can remember. No?
Thank you. Yes, it's on Medium.
Yeah, I thought it was on Medium.
Yes,
so
yes.
Your heart there. So.
No. You said it was one of your favorites. I was
one of my favorite
honored.
articles. Yeah,
Thank you.
I felt like you had so much in there that was so practical. And
it's all practical.
But it also, sometimes when people present things to us, they're very grandiose, right? Like, I love Dr. Claude Anderson, but Powernomics is a very grandiose idea. Whereas it is. I mean, it takes a lot of people working together, and some of us are like, we don't know.
Yes, absolutely. Right? It's more than just you. Yes.
It's more than just you. Whereas with your article, it was practical things that was either you or you and your immediate family could do, I felt, when I read that article.
Well, that article is actually broken down into kind of 3 sections. It's broken down from the personal, from the family, and the community. Because, a lot of times when we get into, and I don't want to get too deep into but into being kind of Americanized, we really forget about the collective and the community. And I know y'all don't forget about that at the 10K project. And I totally understand what you mean, right? Sometimes we get these grandiose things. We all just voted together, which I do believe in, but it's going to take a whole lot more than where we're at right now. So I got it. But I do think we can't lose sight of it because unity is really the key to a lot of this. And I always want to beat that drum because when you look at some of our other counterparts, whether they're Asian, whether they're Jewish, they have more of a holistic group mentality when it comes to a lot of things, not everything. And they're able to get some things done that we have not been able to get done.
I agree with that. I was listening to a YouTuber today who was talking about the Buffalo mass shootings, and she had read the manifesto as, various people had done. I never read those types of things, but one of the things that she said was that in the manifesto, he specifically targeted the Black community because we were the least defended community that was out there. And I thought that was a very interesting thing. And of course, it broke my heart because from what I hear from the news, the manifesto was about, people of color overtaking the United States. And yet he went in there and he killed a whole bunch of elderly Black people. And I'm like, that has like nothing to do with each other, but it did show a huge vulnerability that we have. We have it economically because the day after that, like the Asian hate bill was passed, like the Black hate bill, something should have been passed and that wasn't done. Y'all know how I feel about politics. I don't trust either side, but I just see so many holes in what we have, you know?
Well, it's funny. I mean, his problem and a lot of the problems that we're seeing right now coming up, and I don't want to throw a party under the bus, but I will, because I would say the Republicans are promoting a lot of this anti-Browning of America, so to speak, rhetoric. And the Democrats, you're right, I agree with you. They're just as bad. Both sides suck. But it seems like the people that have the biggest problem with us folks, Black folks, people of color, are those on the right side of the aisle. And they don't really do anything but stir the flames, in my opinion. And I guess I need to read that manifesto now, because I actually do talk about defense. Some of my mentors growing up were Pan-Africanists, and they always talked about, we're good at making money, we're good at getting education, but you have to be able to defend yourself against those in the community and those outside the community, because oftentimes they're one and the same. And so us folks who are quote unquote conscious, quote unquote trying to do the right thing, quote unquote trying to uplift the community, have to be able to defend ourselves. And it's just really sad that it's 2022 and we're still dealing with this nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. And Carlos is saying both sides take money from the same companies. Yes, that is true.
Yeah. Yep.
That is very true. I will say this. I'm not completely anti-Republican, because I've met some really good Republican people, right? Who are, local, right? They're like, look, we want to do school choice. We want to do things in order to help the community. I've met some really good, I feel, Black Republicans that are trying to do good as well. I think a lot of the issues happen when you start getting into the national levels, but I never want this to be just Black people should just vote Democrat. Just
and it shouldn't be,
right?
And it shouldn't be. And just let me clarify my statement, right? I get called a Republican all the time, right? But I would say the Republicans don't exist anymore, because the party has been hijacked.
The old.
Right, the real,
yeah.
Right. Fiscal responsibility.
The Democrats either. I mean, if you look at it, they're split as well.
They're split, but I would say, and I don't want to make this a political show, because
right. I was going to say we're going to come back to getting our money right, but
well, I will say this, right? If we're talking as a community, we have to look at politics, because politics really dictates where the money goes and where the money flows. A changing of legislation can totally wipe out any industry, and can wipe out who can make money.
Right. I was going to say the start industries as well. There's right. $40 billion that went to the Ukraine. That money is flowing through some companies in the United States in order to get to the Ukraine. It's just not going to land in the Ukraine, right?
Well, they got some, but there were contracts, right? There are contracts.
Exactly. Yep. So people, So, and there's a lot of industries. Cannabis, for example, is an industry that on the state level is starting to open up. And then over time, perhaps we'll see federal legislation. This is a very controversial show that I've been thinking about doing, but this whole Roe v. Wade thing, there's going to be a business aspect to Roe v. Wade as well. There are going to be people who—
You mean outside of the medical, right?
Who make money. I believe there's going to be an uptick in medical tourism. Right? They're going to be, I mean,
they're
going to be people who are going to end up winning from this, and and et cetera. So again, I didn't want to make this a whole political show. We just kind of started because I started talking about the Buffalo mass shooter, but let's talk about getting our money right. recession. Some people feel like it's here. Some people feel like, not quite yet. Inflation. I was talking to some people earlier today. We see it in gas prices and the food. So everybody is feeling inflation. Camari, talk to us a little bit about where we are now, what you're seeing in the marketplace, and what can we do individually and with our families, let's say, to start off with, to help us. How do we get our money right? And I'm going to be right back as well. Give me a second.
Well, I think we're here. I think we're in a recessionary period already. Now, normally they don't count for energy and food when we're talking about overall inflation, which is really judged by CPI, Consumer Price Index, which is basically a basket of goods or services, right? But inflation or energy and food have been up so high, you cannot ignore it anymore. I mean, we're actually facing formula shortages now. And sadly, the pandemic has really exacerbated so many things on so many levels that there's really no way getting around it. But I would say what families should really start doing is taking an inventory of what you're spending, who you're spending it with, right? That's number one. And is it really necessary? Gas ultimately a lot of times is driven by, a lot of times we make all these extra trips. If we kind of keep our cars parked more, we won't feel the brunt of that burden. And a lot of us have, premium vehicles. My daughter just went on her junior prom over the weekend, and the talk was, I had to put premium gas in my car. Well, the one thing I'm thankful for is my father, because he always would talk about the cost of things. And he says, when you get a vehicle, you have to not only think about just paying for the vehicle, but you got to be able to pay for the tires. And so when I hear people say, I can't afford to put tires on this car, or I can't afford to put gas on this car, you should have kind of allocated for that a little bit in advance. So hopefully this major shock will make us better stewards of our money, help us to be better decision-making, or help us guide our decision-making processes a lot more. Now, when I was born, right before the oil or the gas shortage, right? My dad always talked about that. So I never forgot that, how they had to allocate gas for license tags and things like that. And he actually downsized his vehicle, right? He had, many of y'all might not remember this, but it was called an AMX Javelin, which was a muscle car. He had a muscle car, and then he had like Mustangs before that. He downgraded to a Carmen Gear. And so again, that's a Volkswagen, a really small 2-door Volkswagen. I don't know why he got a Volkswagen. It was a 2-door coupe. It was me, my mom, and him. And they had to put a car seat back there, which was crazy. But ever since that time, he had that Volkswagen. And after that, he has had nothing but Toyotas, Camrys, Celicas, all very gas conservative cars.
Good cars too. They last a long time. They last like 200,000 miles, and they're good on gas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Low maintenance.
Maybe it was your father growing up as well. And I say growing up, I mean, the responsibility of having a child changes everything.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely a major influence on me as well. So when I look at things, now it's just like, well, you brought this foreign vehicle that, has a lot of maintenance. Mm-hmm. You're not 6 figures, like mid 6 figures. You might be high 5 figures, low 6 figures, right? So you're good, but you're not balling. Mm-hmm. And so, it always makes me wonder in my mind, why would you make that purchase? Why would you make that purchase? But anyway, we are in this state now. We have no idea how long it's going to go. It's been impacted by so many things, from Russia and Ukraine to COVID, the pandemic. This whole formula shortage isn't really a thing of COVID so much as there's only like 4 or 5 major formula producers in this country. And the government, right, going back to politics and money, they're inextricably linked, because they have banned international formula to come into this country for a long time.
And
So
they knew this was coming in November. I was reading in the Wall Street Journal that they knew in November that this was going to be a problem, and they didn't act.
they didn't get in front of it. And that's always the problem, right? They
Yeah,
never can act fast enough.
yeah, yeah.
And
I
I'm
mean,
laughing because, it's par for the course. It always happens.
yeah. I mean, one of the things that I believe, and I know it's a little elitist, and is that one of the best things that we can do individually and for our families is to be as far away from poverty as possible, because it does give you more options with regards to somebody's got formula somewhere. But I was watching this this past weekend, I was watching this old CNN report of this woman who, these two women actually, who are impoverished, and one of them had 4 kids. She had no car. She had a minimum wage job, which was like $7, $8 an hour back in 2014-ish. And she had to take her 4 kids on the bus to travel to get to get food, get groceries, right? So, one of the big things I think is important is for each individual person. This goes back to your Guide to Black Wealth article, is to really think about the career that you're getting into and the skills that you're building. And I always say that I've got 5 like major options for people: healthcare, technology, and tech doesn't necessarily mean you have to code. There are a lot of non-coding tech jobs that are out there. Any kind of trades people, plumbing, electrician, appliance repair is really big now. We have Michael Sneed on a couple of weeks ago. Sales jobs, a lot of people are sleeping on sales jobs, but if you want to make $200,000, $300,000 a year, a good sales job will get you there. And then the 5th one is entrepreneurship, which I'm going to slide into Camari, because entrepreneurship is not flashy. We see a lot of stuff on Instagram and things like that. True entrepreneurship is a skill. Do you know how to hire people? Do you know how to run your operations? Do you know how to do good customer service and customer care? Do you know how to pay your taxes, your insurance, things like that? Being an entrepreneur, even though I love it, it is very exhausting. And sometimes I do wish I had a job where I could just leave it all behind for somebody else to take care of, and I could enjoy my weekends, right? But Camari, so I want you to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and LLCs, because I know you have a specific opinion. And the other thing is Pinky from Slutty Vegan.
Pinky Gold, yes. She's a genius.
LLCs.
Before we get started, I already know where we're going. She's a genius.
Yes. So the story is that the Slutty Vegan CEO was doing the commencement address was it Clark Atlanta, something like that?
It was Clark Atlanta.
Clark Atlanta.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And she gave the entire graduating class their own LLCs to start their lives off with. So Camari, I'm gonna bounce it to you. Talk to us about business and entrepreneurship and some of the things that people should know with regards to all of that.
So, let's start at the top, right? Anybody can be an entrepreneur. You can be 9, you can be 90, you can have a job, you can be unemployed, you can be in a business, right? I think a lot of things that are practical for a lot of people is to get a job. And then when you're at the job, if you can build skills and build a war chest, i.e. savings, it's one of the greatest things you can do, because you can learn on the job on somebody else's dime instead of, using your own money. But once you master your skill, whatever that skill may be, you can then start a side hustle. And that will afford you a lot of tax breaks by having your 9-to-5 job, which will give you a stable income that will help you. I always say having a job can help you finance your freedom, right? Because then you can then take your time and build your business and build it right from the start. A lot of times when you're forced into entrepreneurship, like some of us, right? You kind of get thrown into a thing, and then you gotta maneuver, you gotta dance a little bit, you gotta run a little bit, you gotta walk a little bit. And then sometimes after you've been running all this time, doing your business, doing all the tasks, you gotta sit down because you're just tired or you're burnt out. And so I say all that to say is that, you can kind of do it the way you need to do it, not necessarily the way that the Instagram folks think you should do it or the Twitter folks should say you should do it. And so kind of going into that, right, you got to do what's best for you. Now with Pinky Cole, again, Pinky Cole Slutty Vegan, just the name, Slutty Vegan. I'm a fan of that genius. I would love to sit down and talk to her with that.
Yeah,
Yes.
the branding
Yes.
is tremendous.
I don't know if it was her, if it was a marketing team, whatever, but whatever it was, she ran with it and she did a daggone thing. Now, fast forward to now in Clark, Atlanta, I am seeing her giving away LLCs. Now, it only costs $125 to form LLCs in Georgia. I don't know if the majority of the graduating class is from Georgia, but let's just add that in as the assumption for right now. It's $125, and she mentioned very casually, but very strongly that this is a partnership with Varo Bank. Varo Bank is actually owned by Bancorp. And so I thought that was very interesting that she decided to slide that all in. But here's the thing. What if somebody doesn't want an LLC? What if they don't want to start a business? What if they want to go to med school? What if they want to go to law school, right? If we're talking about Black wealth, we always have to kind of look at some of our holes. We don't have enough Black lawyers. Mm-hmm. You brought up medicine. We don't have enough Black doctors. Mm-hmm. How many Black women are still suffering from health disparities because there's not enough people like us there to advocate for them, amongst all the other issues that are going on in healthcare and just American racism in general, right? But representation matters. Everybody isn't ready to be an entrepreneur as well, right? There's a certain level of maturity and and readiness you have to go through, in my opinion, right? And again, one of the first things I said, you can be non, but you can be non running a lemonade store. And I know we're kind of in this advent of the kids running stores, but when you really peel back the layers, it's really the parents doing it. Mm-hmm. And the kids are just the branding or marketing tools that are being used at the moment. I want to be respectful, right, of the children. But they're not really the ones putting up the money, running the day-to-day or any of this, but it plays into a certain narrative, right? And that narrative is that entrepreneur is easy. Anybody can do it. Get out there and get it done. Which is kind of a fallacy when you really get down to brass tacks. So I would say that I think it's sad. One, everybody doesn't need an LLC. You don't need an LLC to start a business. Just your social security number alone is enough to start a business. And I know somebody's going to say, but you need an LLC to do business and you get tax breaks. Lies. All lies. You don't get any more tax breaks when you start an LLC than when you are a sole proprietor or just a regular individual. That cell phone expense, that car deduction, that marketing expense, they're all the same if you have an LLC or if you're just a regular old person like Camari who's doing a business. I actually tell some people to just start it, right? If you're selling waters on a corner, if you're selling water on a corner, why do you need an LLC? LLC is a legal thing. Mm-hmm. It's a thing for legal protections. It's a risk tool, right? If you have assets that you're afraid will be lost, then the LLC might make sense. But guess what you should have before you get the LLC? Great insurance. Because many people
I can agree with that. I always say it depends on the type of business that you have and how risky it is. So when my mother started her bookkeeping business, that's like a low risk business, right? Because she wasn't touching money or anything like that. So because of that, that's a low risk business. I knew somebody who manufactured toys. To me, that's a high risk business. That's like, no, you start off with your I think she ended up doing a corporation, actually. Like you start off with that because you're doing something where if a piece falls off,
Baby
and
eats
just
it.
lodges in the kid, yeah, then you could end up with a whole lot of problems. But the majority of us, 95% of us, don't need that to start. The other thing I will say is that some of us can use the LLCs for our family banks. I'm going to start pushing that again for people as well, because we can take those family banks or family investment clubs, pool our money together with our families, or maybe some makeshift family, and really start going out there buying tax liens, buying properties, investing in all sorts of stuff, stocks, things like that, and really growing generational wealth. With
Let me jump in for a minute. So what
Sure,
you just shifted the conversation, right?
I did.
So
Okay.
it's a little bit. It's one of those fine technicalities, right?
Hmm.
When we're talking about a family bank, it's usually
Hmm.
two or more people.
Hmm.
So when you have an LLC that's two or more people, that's now treated as a partnership.
Hmm.
And what a lot of people don't realize is the IRS could give two hootenannies about an LLC. That's really more for the state level. And again, not to get over technical, but the IRS doesn't really care about it. If you have what they call a multi-member LLC, it's treated as a partnership. And so people need to know what you need to do, right? Before you do anything, I'm a big advocate of education because I see this all the time. Got a lot of real estate clients. They'll form partnerships. They don't know when their filing dates are, right? And then they're like, Camari, I have to file by April 15th. And I'm like, no, you have a partnership. Your partnership filing date is March 15th. Guess what?
Yeah.
You've already got a couple $1,000s in penalties and fines,
Hmm.
and you just started out the gate
Because you don't know the rules.
because you don't know the rules. And
Yes.
so people think they think I'm anti LLC, I'm anti-trust, I'm
I've heard that
anti-Bitcoin.
about you.
Yeah, and it's like,
Heard
no,
that about you.
y'all don't listen to the details. It's all about the details. You got to do what's right for you. Like you brought up, your client or your friend who
Hmm.
has the toy business, and especially if they're raising money and they're raising capital, it might make sense to be a corporation,
Hmm.
a C corporation, not an S corporation. But
Right.
again, everybody's situation is going to be different. At the end of the day, personal finance is personal.
Hmm.
The doctor shouldn't be giving every patient the same medication, the same prescription. It's the same as business. It's not a cookie cutter approach. You have to do what's specific for you and what's best for you and your family. A lot of times, because I know we got a lot of sisters in here, and sadly, a lot of times sisters run the households. They're leading these households by themselves, and so they have to factor in not just themselves, but the
Yeah.
babies or sometimes the elders a lot of times. So you got to make all those decisions and you got to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Kevin is asking what kind of insurance. So I'll let you answer and then I'll tell you what I have.
So for me, like I have, errors and omissions
Arizona
insurance,
missions. Yeah.
right? But there are some certain instances where I might get some liability insurance for certain things. Each business is going to be different. Since
Yes.
I'm what they call quote unquote a professional, you have errors and omissions. So if I make a mistake, somebody might want to sue me. Something goes wrong with the IRS, they might want to sue me so I can send it there. If you are in real estate, you would need some liability, but it's going to vary. And I will say this for anybody that's in nonprofit work, because I know a lot of people don't think about this. If you're on a board of directors, you want to make sure your nonprofit has what's called D&O insurance, directors and officers
Mhm.
insurance, because sometimes when you are on these boards of nonprofits, something goes wrong. You're having a gala, somebody slips and falls, they might try to sue the board. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, y'all.
We have a couple of other questions here in YouTube. Uh,
Oh, we all
isn't
over.
the, I'm sorry?
I said we all over, huh?
Oh yeah, we all over. We
Okay.
multi-streaming.
All right.
Um, from YouTube, isn't the LLC a whole different entity? So if the business goes south, your personal credit does not get affected?
Yes and no, right? Because a lot of people still have to do what's called a PG or a personal guarantee, even if you have a business. So it really depends. It really depends. Again, there is no right or wrong. I know there's a big push for everybody to get quote unquote business credit without the PG these days. But I work with some pretty serious people I have one client right now that's out Midwest. They built a 48-unit building from the ground up, and they still had to do PGs. And so
He is a personal guarantee.
Personal guarantee, yeah. So, and I know that, I'm not the credit guy, right? So I'm never going to get on here and try to act like I know everything, because I don't. Nobody knows everything.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, I've seen way less times when people had full business credit that just relied on their DUNS number and their EIN and no personal guarantee than I've seen that has. So, again, you gotta go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree. I have not seen it unless your business is doing
really well.
And you've been around for a while. I would say the people I've seen, and this is not like a hard and fast rule, but the people I've seen have definitely been over $20 million a year, and they've been around for 10 years, before I've seen like some of that stuff starting to lift. And I'm not saying that that's the cutoff. I'm just saying these are the people I've seen that have been able to get away with, not having a personal guarantee. So we have other questions in YouTube. Can you change from an LLC to an S Corp or a C Corp?
Yes, you can. You can elect to be an S Corp once you're an LLC. The reason why you may want to do that, because it's not for everybody, is that you have a very profitable business. You're getting killed with what's called self-employment tax. And you say, you know what? With an S Corp, I can then control my self-employment tax a bit more, but I have to take a salary. I'm now considered a corporation, so I have to keep corporate minutes at least annually. So, those are some of the things you got to think about. Yeah. Each entity has its pros and cons. There is no silver bullet for any of them.
And I'm just answering some questions in here. So Norris had asked about the insurances. So it's E&O, which stands for errors and omissions.
Yes.
Then there's general liability insurance. And then there's D&O, which stands for directors and officers. And those are for nonprofits. But I think they're also for C corporations if you're on a board as well. I've heard of that.
Yes, you're correct. I was just thinking about, BLM and the nonprofit work I do.
We're going to talk about BLM.
But you are correct. You are correct. Because you might be on a board of a C Corp and not necessarily the director or the 100% owner.
Yeah. Before we get to BLM, I do want to circle back to recession in business and tie it up with debt reduction. Student loans you're going to start having to pay those back, expected August 31st, I think is the date from what I remember. Talk to us about financial planning during a recession. What are some of the other things that we need to do? Should we sit down with someone and create our own customized plan? Like, walk us through some of your thoughts with regards to that.
I mean, the core of my platform is education. Education. And that's not to say that I don't believe in getting a planner or an advisor, or whatever title you want to go with. But I believe that a lot of times in financial services, people are there just to sell you a product that might not necessarily be the best thing for you and your overall life. Now, there are a lot of good planners out there, because my mentor was one. He saw a broadcast I did called Financial Education versus Financial Planner. And I said I would rather folks to start to get their education on board, because what happens is, in my opinion, a lot of people want to abdicate their responsibility to a planner. A planner is not going to make you rich. You're going to make you rich. The planner is just there to be a truly objective soundboard and to introduce you to some strategies that you might not be familiar with. Right. But I love to talk about Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. They are strategizing probably daily a lot of times what their next moves are. Right. So, anybody that's got a partner, got an ace that, they're doing business together, they're only bringing their financial planner in kind of as a soundboard to say, hey, what holes do you see in this? What other things can I do? But they're already taking agency and moving of their own accord. And I think, tying back into overall recession, I think that's what we should be doing all the time, because you said income, right? A lot of people are very close to poverty. Many of us are not maximizing our skill sets, developing new skills so we can increase our income. And yeah, there's a lot of personal or financial planning tips you should be looking at. Everybody should be looking at life insurance, especially if you have children, right? A lot of times we forget about the power of life insurance. In my opinion, it's probably one of the, if not the greatest financial tool ever created. Why? Because you can take pennies on a dollar and say, you know what, I'm going to pay these companies $20 a month, and you can get coverage for $1 million, and you can literally die tomorrow, and it will pay out to your family as long as you didn't lie or anything like that. Right. But it'll pay out the death benefit to your family. So, you know, those are the things we got to start looking at. We got to start looking at our wills. We should be looking at our beneficiary, or what they call beneficiary designations, right? The people that are on your 401ks, your insurances, your IRAs, your pension plans.
Yes.
You want to make sure that's going to all the people. God forbid something happened to you, but it's going to the people who you wanted to go to. There's too many stories of, you know, husband divorces and forgets to take ex-wife off of the pension.
Yeah.
And the new wife, leaves old wife on, gets remarried, old wife gets the money. New wife is pissed. Excuse me, I don't know if I can cuss on here.
All the time.
Yeah.
The most heartbreaking story I heard, and I don't know this to be true, but Tawana, every time she hears it, she's like, I believe it, because she's in HR, is there was a mother. She was married to a man, had him on her 401k, had a 5-year-old child. The 5-year-old was not, the man, ex-husband was not the 5-year-old's father.
Right.
Mother dies, 401k goes to the ex-husband and not the 5-year-old or whomever the guardian was supposed to be of the 5-year-old. I always say, get your paperwork together. The other thing is payment on death on your bank statements. So checking your 401k, checking your pension, checking payments on death on your bank statements. As far as I know, every bank is offering that now. If they don't offer to you automatically, you can ask them for it. It's a piece of paper, you fill it out, and that way, what happens is, and my father had this when he passed, all you have to do is show up to the bank with a death certificate, and they release the money versus it going through probate. If you have a payment on death and you haven't changed it in the last 5 years and stuff has happened in your life, make sure that it is changed to the correct person. Otherwise, you know, he or she who is on that account gets it. It supersedes a will.
Yep. All the contracts supersede a will.
Yeah.
So your TOD, your transfer of death, or payment on death, your beneficiary designations, they all supersede the will.
Yeah. Now I'm going to disagree with you because
about to get smacked up,
y'all. I do think for people, even though education is very important, I do think like the right financial planner who is working with you to create the best plan for you and not necessarily just trying to line his pocket by selling you things that are going to give him the highest commission, him or her the highest commission. I think that is useful to people because some of us, we hear things with regards to education, but we may not know exactly how to apply it to our situation. So we do, 10K Project does have a connection with Freeman Capital, and that is what they do. They do financial coaching for people where you sit down, you go through the mental stuff with regards to money and you, and then you sit down and you write out all of your debts, your expenses, your income. How can you increase your income? How can you reduce or maintain your expenses? If you want to start a business, if you want to retire, they work with you on your goals. I do think that is something that people should consider doing if you haven't done so already. Especially as we're headed into this period of time, if you feel like things are going to be very tight for you.
So I won't necessarily disagree with you, right?
Mhm.
But I guess I'm
You can
just of the
disagree.
mindset. No. Because I mean, your point is valid, right? But
Mhm.
you're talking about unicorns, though, right?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
so the Freeman, I don't know them, no diss to them.
Mhm.
Sounds like they're unicorns. So shout outs to them,
Yeah.
right? But we always had to be ready to protect ourselves.
Mhm.
It's almost like, and I don't want to get too political, but it's almost like the case for owning firearms versus waiting for the police.
Mhm.
Yeah, the police are there to protect and serve, just like a financial planner is. But sometimes you have rogue police, sometimes you have rogue financial planners.
Mhm.
Best case for you is to always be your biggest advocate in everything you do. So that I stand firmly on.
I agree with
But
that.
again, right, because I say that if you understand what's going on, you can get the best out of your financial planner as
Mhm.
well. And again, like I said, it's not about not having one. It's about how to best utilize one
Mhm.
to help you protect your wealth, grow your wealth, manage your wealth, transfer it. We're going to transfer your wealth. So,
Mhm.
what I see a lot of times though is that people aren't taking that step. And I used to be licensed, right? So
Mhm.
this I'm not just saying this just because I hate financial planners, but I've been in certain situations where so-called financial planner, aka really a life insurance salesman in disguise, will
Mhm.
go out, see people, and just sell them life insurance, the most expensive life insurance, because they were a great salesperson without any care or concern about their overall financial well-being.
Yeah.
So I'm a little jaded, I will admit that, right?
That's
But
fair. That's fair.
it always comes back to what's in the best interest of the people.
Yeah. Which then, so I'll split the difference with you and say that it's important for you as an individual, me as an individual, to kind of sit down and educate ourselves, get our own documents and paperwork together. We can easily write down a list of all of our expenses. You take the last 3 months of your bank statements and you look at your expenses and is there anything that I'm cutting out? Am I spending, $40 a week on Starbucks that I really may not be able to afford? If you are spending $40 on Starbucks, do you need to increase your income or do you need to let some of the Starbucks go? All of those things, are things that I think we can do on our own. But then sometimes you
You
do
need a
need
coach.
somebody to, yeah, you
Yeah,
need
to push
somebody
you.
to kind of look at your situation and kind of say, okay, but if you did this and this too, you can, manage all of this that you have going on. And Lila is saying Freeman is excellent. Yeah, we've heard nothing but great things about Freeman Capital. So everybody, the10kproject.com, if you want to do the upgrade to Freeman Capital and get your financial coaching done with them as well.
This is one of the beauties of 10K Project and, you know, unity, right? That you can bring in a Freeman and you can say to Freeman, listen, I'm trusting you with our people.
Mm-hmm.
If you do us wrong, there will be repercussions and consequences, right?
Yeah.
My commentary is really for those who are out on their own
Mm-hmm.
and don't have any shield or any protection as well. So, again, I think that's a really good thing. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like
It's
you
just like
said,
me looking at an entrepreneur that comes, on, or I see people who claim to be business coaches. And for me, the whole thing is, okay, well, what business have you run? Well, I've run my business coaching business. Okay, but what other business have you run? And they
right,
haven't run one. Well,
right.
do you have payroll? No. Have you ever had payroll? No. Have you ever had, somebody try to sue you? No. Have you ever gotten a letter from somebody's attorney threatening to sue you? No. Like, so, but you want to teach this person making $2 million a year how to do their business better. I'm like, so what you're saying, Kamari, like I get it from the other side. Trust me.
Yeah. And I guess I just find, well, you brought up a point, right? You said Freeman helps with financial coaching. So I don't know if they're technically a financial coach
Well, they
or a
they
financial
they
planner.
are licensed certified financial planners. So
Okay.
so they
But
are, And they're Black owned. Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. What I was going to say is, though, I think a lot of us need more financial coaching than actual financial planning. The distinction a lot of times being that we need people to help us get those good habits in place, to get the savings in place. You talked about overspending, to even know what you're spending your money on, right? So those things are so oftentimes overlooked, kind of looked down on, that they're really the groundwork for any great wealth creation machine. That's i.e. you or your family.
Yeah. I like how you made that distinction. So financial coaching, definitely more so than financial planning. And Talicia's also saying that Freeman Capital has been a priceless resource for her. And Dee is saying, yes, they are. So
Great.
yeah, so we have people in here who are saying that Freeman Capital has been doing great work. And we don't hear anything but great things from the community with regards to the services that they're providing. So
now, let's be fair. I never put down Freeman Capital, right? So y'all ain't
I
gotta.
did not say you did. I did not say you did at all.
I just want to be clear because sometimes they say Camari said all financial planners are trash.
No. I know better than that. So, all right, I got three more topics for you. Stock
Okay.
market.
Yep.
Stock market. What is happening now with the market? What should people be aware of? All of that good stuff.
Well, the stock market has been running since 2009, since that last great crash we had when Obama was in office after he took over from Bush. Hasn't stopped running now. And it's been running because it's been artificially propped up with easy money or easy monetary policy. Basically, the Fed Reserve has been making mortgages really easy to get, has been making interest rates really low. So making credit cards and mortgages again, because that mortgage is kind of two-pronged. Getting easier mortgages to get kind of two-pronged and again, easy to get. That's why we see housing prices being pumped up so much. And so it's all starting to slow down a little bit because people are a little scared. And so the stock market's been down for about the last 7 weeks. I'm loving it.
You buying?
Yes. So I see a
it's
sale.
On sale, right? Just like crypto is on sale.
Yeah, I'm hoping
not
that the market.
Advice, anybody, not financial advice.
No, it's not financial advice. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only. But a lot of companies were pumped up. You see the Reddit mafia is out there running loose and ragged, and pumping up companies that actually absolutely have no value, don't really generate anything, and people are fine with it. And I get it. And listen, everybody is a superstar when the market's going up. So, right, you got the rise of all these social media gurus who've never really managed anybody's money. And now they're the best thing since sliced bread. And they are the new Black Jesuses on the block. So all this is kind of like this perfect storm. And then now when we get these inflation prints, inflation's up 8, almost 9%. And folks are saying, wow, it hasn't been this bad since the 80s. What's going to happen now? A lot of people had a lot of built-in profits in these stocks. So they said, you know what? It's time to take some profit, put it on the side, take a breather, and then figure out what's going on there. And the same things happen in crypto markets as well, right?
A lot of wealthy people actually a couple of years ago started taking profits out to put them into opportunity zones. And we've had various experts come and talk about opportunity zones. And you've got these huge conglomerates that, once Trump signed that legislation, they started taking their money out right away. And they've got, I think to 2036 or something like that to invest the money.
It's usually 10 years, roughly.
I'm sorry?
I said that they usually give them like 10 years when they do these opportunity zone funds.
Yeah, we had a gentleman come on, Mr. McCutcheon, a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying you can even put money in through 2036. So nice. I believe that was the year he said. But yeah, like I said, some of these people were taking money because they knew that interest rates were going to rise. Like we've been talking about that for a couple of years now. So people were starting to kind of adjust for that. People who were paying attention. I think one of the biggest suggestions that I would have for people is, and my mother did this, but she'll probably never see it, so it's okay, is a lot of us, especially a lot of our older people, they sell when the market is down. She saw her 401k, and she panicked in 2010, 2011-ish, something like that. And she sold shares that she probably shouldn't have. And I do think, and I'd love to hear you talk about this, Camari, you know, when to actually when to actually sell versus like when to kind of hold on and know that the market is going to rise again. And you gotta just ride the dip, you know?
So that happens to young and old alike. If you ever really look at the stock market, it's probably the greatest place or the greatest magnifier of human emotions, right? You see fear, you see greed, and everything in between. A lot of times people are buying because they're like, oh, I made some money. I can make some more, so I'm going to keep buying in. And they don't ever believe that this rise is ever going to come to an end, or this jump is ever going to come to an end. Mm-hmm. But everything runs in cycles. Some things go up, some things go down. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the timing of it all. I think one of the best things people can do when you're talking about investing, talking about long-term investing specifically, is to know your time horizon, right? Yeah. So your mom probably didn't understand her time horizon and when she might need that money. You said it was 401k money. So I'm assuming she would need that for retirement. So when we get that retirement savings, at some point, we have to make that money convert over into our paycheck so we can handle our day-to-day living. And so a lot of people don't understand that. Yeah. You know, everybody's trying to get in today and just make a quick flip and just make it pop, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes there is a lot of value in just sitting and just sitting and sitting and sitting and just letting it run. I know, what was it, 2020? I know I did news in February of 2020 when the market just started to fall. What did I say? Buy more. One of the best times to buy. I actually should start running that clip more. But it was a great call because I knew that the market was going to rebound because companies were making money. And that's one of the biggest things about stocks is that as long as it's a good company and we are not at or in nuclear war, right? Because when that happens, nothing else matters. But as long as there's a viable market out there, people are buying and selling, you can say that this stock is going to rise. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, maybe not even next month, but 10 years from now, you can say, oh, that's a good company. Yeah. Netflix is down right now. I get it. They're losing. They're getting a lot more competition. Mm-hmm. But I would bet they're probably going to come back because they have great management and they tend to have good instincts. But that's not a recommendation. That's not a recommendation. Just an example.
But here's the interesting thing that I see about Netflix, and that's a great example, is taking a step back and asking yourself, how is this company dealing with this crisis? So Netflix, is down because they lost 2 million subscribers because people are out and about now. So one of the things that they're thinking about is offering free content with ads. And if they do that, then, people could watch your favorite shows, watch the ads. They probably will make more money because advertising, your Walmart and Reese's Pieces or whoever is going to pay, to be in front of X number of people, and they're probably going to have a jump in free subscribers. So I kind of look at it as, I'm not a technical analysis person, but I kind of look at it as, what is this company doing? Does this sound like a smart decision long term? And if it is, I will buy. I did buy. Now, I'm not telling you to buy Netflix. I'm just saying that's what I heard that they're doing, and I think that it could be a very smart move. I did buy hospitality stocks when COVID happened. Everything went down. I bought Delta, I bought United, I bought Carnival. I bought another cruise line. I bought hotels, and my little portfolio went up. I've sold since. I'm not telling you to buy or sell. I'm just saying I just kind of I add a little bit more common sense to it, and it doesn't always work. There are a couple of stocks that I bought where I'm like, what in the world was I thinking? I must have read the wrong Wall Street Journal report. So it doesn't always work. But for me, that's kind of like one of the ways that I look at it. And Dedrick is saying first potential major bear market for Generation Z. I think that that's interesting as well. The millennials came in to the job market mostly when there was a recession, so they had to navigate that. Now Gen Z is coming in with this. What are some of your thoughts with regards to some of the younger people?
I'm laughing because there was a young person they were either a young millennial or an old Zer, but they told me that fundamentals don't matter anymore. so now we're getting to see like, hey, fundamentals do matter. Everything regresses back to the mean at some point. Yeah. And so I think it's a great thing for them because it will let them know that everything isn't always rosy and peachy all the time, and they get to see some things. But I'm also not the guy that I never want to be the old guy that puts down the youth. I feel like a lot of our youth are just, the youth suck. They don't work hard. They're not smart. They don't do anything. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. Yeah. I think the millennials and many of the Zs are very much like the boomers, right? Everybody forgets that the boomers are very much flower power. Everybody forgets that the boomers were doing drugs and having quote unquote sex parties and sex, drugs and rock and roll and doing all kinds of things that were quote unquote anti-establishment. Many people forget that many of the boomers were getting their vans, i.e. van life now, van life back then, and traveling all over the place. Mm-hmm. And then they grew up, right?
And that happens.
It all was right in the world, right? Yeah. So why do we kind of forget what we do when we're younger, when we're inexperienced, and just want to throw everybody to the wayside? So, but again, it's experiences. This is another experiences for the old millennials, the young millennials and the Zs. And, they can say, hey, things are real now. I got to figure it out. Home prices are real now. I'm going to have to live with mommy and daddy for quite some time if I don't figure out how to make some money and do some things. Yeah. And I think every generation kind of goes through that. So I think they'll be fine.
I think the skills that Gen Z need today to make it for the next 50 years of working is different from the skills that the baby boomers needed or that I need as a Gen X person or an older millennial would need,
I don't know, right? We needed plumbers then. We still need plumbers now. Yeah. Now, granted, tech is here, right? I'm not trying to be, act like it's not real. But some of those basic things are still needed.
Yeah, but my understanding from the tradespeople that I've spoken with is even the trades these days have more tech involved.
A lot of them do.
Right? Yeah. Or if you're a mechanic, well, you can't be a mechanic these days without the tech, the understanding the diagnostic equipment and things like that. So the other big thing I was thinking about with skills, honestly, was, communication in a TikTok environment, is very different than communication when you and I grew up, right? We're both
the microwave age, right?
Yeah,
I thought you were younger than me.
Yeah. And also, I read all sorts of comments on social media, and I'm like, where are these people punctuation and things like that?
Well, don't ever look at my social media then, because my autocorrect.
Are you a culprit?
My autocorrect destroys me, and I'll write something and then go back to it like 3 days later. I'm like, wow, my mother really slapped me upside the head if she read this right now.
Oh, boy. All right.
I will say this, though.
We have 2 questions in here, and then I definitely want to get into BLM at least.
Okay. But let me just say this one thing, right? Uh-huh. I think we all are victims of microwave society.
I agree.
young and old,
I agree.
because everything's moving that much faster. And so us Xers and millennials and boomers are having that same issue too. But that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. I agree. I agree, definitely. I so I'll add something in since we're adding stuff in. I read a report that TikTok, the algorithm in the United States is different from the algorithm in China. The
See, I've heard that.
algorithm, yeah, the algorithm in China focuses on STEM, on education. The algorithm in the United States focuses on dancing and things like that. And we talked about the Republicans and the Democrats. One of the things that Trump was threatening, I don't know if he was serious about it, was this whole TikTok thing. And I do think when we start talking about skills, the skills that, can potentially weaken our nation, 50 years from now, we probably will not be the only superpower. We may not be a superpower at all. How do we prepare our children for that day when they are Black people living in a post superpower United States, and being able to navigate all of that. So
I would say those cultures value education a lot more than the United States does. When you look at where the United States puts their money, it's not in education. And we can see that K through 12.
mhm.
And so then just the TikToks or their social media reflects a lot of that. But a lot of those restrictions, Biden hasn't changed from what Trump did. And so that's going to be interesting going
He
forward.
did let TikTok back in.
He did, but some of those same Chinese restrictions, especially around trade, are still there.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
So we have 3 questions in here. Beulah is asking, I was considering refinancing my house. I saw interest rates go from January 2021 at 2.5% to now January 2022 being 5.75%. Will that continue to increase? Her first question is, how will that continue to increase?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Second question, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, especially as the Federal Reserve is slowing down what they call their bond buying program. And so basically the Federal Reserve is helping to keep the mortgage markets liquid, helping to push the rates down. They're stopping that now. So part of what's happening now, or the reaction to that, is that interest rates are going up drastically, as you just illustrated.
Yeah, it is. HELOCs, she's asking, how do HELOCs work?
HELOCs are, home equity lines of credit. Usually if you have some equity in your home, a bank or a mortgage company will allow you to get a line of credit that is based on the equity that's in your home. They very much work kind of like a credit card with your home. You only pay interest on the money that you use. I would say be very careful with them though, because, as interest rates are going up, things are going to be a little bit tricky. If you don't, so I would also say this, right? HELOCs are kind of good sometimes for an emergency backup plan. But if you have plenty of cash and plenty of credit, you really don't need one. But if you have like interest to do something else, buy a home, flip a home, a business or something like that, you got a plan, it could be a good viable option for you. But if you don't have any of those things, you really want to examine why you want it. I would start with why. Why do you want this HELOC? That would be the question I would ask you first and foremost.
Now, you're also asking, Bueller, can a financial planner help with that? If you're asking, can they help with the HELOC application, you go to your bank for that. If you're asking, can a financial coach help you make the decision, then yes, a financial coach probably could help you with that more than a financial planner. So I want to make sure I'm answering that as correctly as possible.
I mean, they both should be able to help you, but just be careful. Because sometimes some of these banks have people that are quote unquote financial planners and they're pushing products and services on you as well.
Which is why which is why we made the distinction with financial coach earlier. Yeah. And even with financial coaches, be very careful who you are getting advice from.
Yep.
So Beulah's also saying here, in 2008, we were hit in our 401k. I worked for the state. We had a manager come to us. He told us to ride it out if we were not retiring within the year. My 401k has not rebounded from where it was before 2008. Oh, that's odd, Beulah. Why do you think her 401k has not rebounded since 2008?
Bet few, so I've seen this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I bet Beulah's 401k is allocated very much to cash and bonds. I would bet dollars or donuts that that's the case.
Wow.
And probably got, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Beulah, but you probably got very fearful in 2008, which a lot of people were. And you allocated to, or you might have not ever allocated, but at that time you were heavily allocated in cash and bonds, and you never got a chance to experience this major run up over the last 12 years.
Okay. Stacia, I hope I'm saying your name right, is asking the question, what are your thoughts on purchasing I bonds? The rate is currently 9.62%.
9.62%. I've been talking about I bonds for a minute. I absolutely love I bonds. I think everybody should buy I bonds. It's a great tool to fight against inflation. I did a video on my YouTube channel, The Finance Rebel, talking about I bonds and a few other savings opportunities that really work well against inflation. I bonds being one, right? Anybody can get them. I believe you can only buy up to $10,000 in a year. If you're married, you and your husband can buy some. If you have a business, you can buy some in the business names as well. But some of the other things I talked about too are tips, Treasury inflation protected bonds. And you can buy them kind of through ETFs. Another good use for, I will say, alternative savings tools as well. And I also recommended preferred shares. So there's some options out there.
Great. Anonymous is asking. Anonymous, I know why you're anonymous on here. Asking Camari, if you had $100,000 in cash, what would you do? And the "you" is emphasized here.
If I had $100,000 in cash, I probably would take a vacation.
You would do what?
Take a vacation.
No, you would not take a vacation. What would you really do with it?
I'm serious. What I would do, though, to be totally honest with you, I would reinvest it into my business. So I'm looking to hire some more staff. I think one of the greatest ways of making money is having a business and reinvesting into it and doubling down. It'll give you way bigger returns than those in the stock market, way bigger returns in the bond market. Again, if you are operating it right. Now, give me a little bit more on that, Anonymous. Do you have a business, or you just want to see what's in my brain right now?
This is another anonymous. I don't know if it's the same anonymous. Do we just approach our brokerage regarding purchasing tips and I bonds, or the bank?
Your brokerage. Your
brokerage. Okay. I don't know if Anonymous has a business, but I definitely agree with doubling down on business as well. One of the things, I was speaking with a gentleman who also rode out the last recession. My mother's company, I was with her at the time doing bookkeeping. We were able to ride out the last recession. And in recessionary times with—
You're an accountant, Sheree?
I'm sorry?
You're an accountant?
Well, I was a bookkeeper. So, yeah. I know enough to be dangerous.
So we got accountant juice going on.
Yeah. Look, right. I know enough to be dangerous. So
okay.
So one of the things that happens though is you do have to increase your marketing in order to not only survive but to meet your next year goals. So you increase your marketing time as well as your marketing budget, anything to get more leads through the door. Unless you're willing to lower your price, and most of us aren't, especially in a hyperinflationary period of time. So I know that I'm doubling down on my business right now. I have a couple of things that people want for me. Then I'm just like, I'm finally like, you know what? I'm going for profit right now. I'm just gonna provide this as a service to people and just, move forward. So I've got one more question in YouTube, and then we're going to get to BLM.
Okay.
The question in YouTube is, from Snuggle668, should I build on my land or should I wait? And is it cheaper to buy an already built house? So Snuggles is asking about real estate.
Snuggles, that's a loaded question, Snuggles. There's so much. I'm laughing because I want to say something, but I'm not. There's so much that goes into building land and building our land, right? Does your land already have sewage connected to it? Or do you have, I want to say leach fields and everything else? Do you have electrical service run out to it? Do you have water tapped into it? Have you priced out what it will cost to develop that out? Will the county that you in give you the zoning and the permits to do all that? Because every municipality, every county is different. I will say this, I did learn a lot of times if you have the skills to do it, it's cheaper to build from the ground up. But right now, with wood and sheetrock and everything else being so high, you would have to definitely run the numbers on that. And again, you have to be honest with yourself and say, do you have the skills? Do you have the crew? Do you have the resources to go out and build it, right? Because there's a lot of things that go on into building a house, right? You usually have to dig out the earth, right? Lay your footers, pour your cement, then come up and frame everything out, secure it, get the roof on, rough it in with the plumbing and electrical. It's a lot of work. So the question really is what do you have and what do you bring to bear with all that? Can you get it done? If not, it might make sense to buy brand new, but it really just depends.
Buy brand new, you could buy a fixer-upper. You could buy a fixer-upper that you could live in. Yep. And there are people that do that all the time. And then they just, do their Home Depot or Lowe's projects on the weekends for 6 months. And next thing you know, you've increased the equity, in your home. Go ahead, Claude.
I will say this though, I just thought about it. Some of these folks with they're buying trailers, and actually they're also buying tiny homes, and they're doing some really interesting things. And so a lot of them are already pre-built. So instead of kind of going the quote unquote typical construction route, you might want to look at a trailer or a tiny home that oftentimes come ready assembled, and you don't have to think about any of those things. And it's usually a lot less cheaper.
Yeah. So it kind of depends on where you are in your
Absolutely.
life. So Beulah is saying, I heard a pastor say, purchase land because God is not making any more land. I have my personal thought about that. I want
to hear it. What's your personal thought? Pastor said, buy.
Pastor said. Okay, so I heard a story once of a person who bought land and the land was landlocked, which means that the land was in the middle of like other people's land and there was no drive-through and no way for the person to get to their land. And none of the other neighbors were willing to like let this person cut through their land to get to his land. So I'm always cautious of like knowing what you're doing when you're getting advice from people. I think a lot of times people like they either over exaggerate or they don't tell you the whole story. And I've seen that multiple times. I've gotten trapped into deals and stuff like that, where, I didn't know what I didn't know. And next thing you know, I'm in this investment and it's a nightmare to get out of. But that's what I think.
Yeah, I was going to say they're not building any more swamps either, but basically that's to your same point. And here's the thing, if you look at what Dubai has been created, you could say they are building new land now, right? We just don't have the monies to do it. But as technology advances, things are going to change. But I mean, people say that because it sounds sexy. It's a cool thing to say. And what I find is that that's cool for a rap song, right? Some of those terms like that, it's not really cool for your money. And anytime somebody is telling you absolutely to always buy land or always buy real estate because they're not buying anymore, they're not looking at the fine details. And that's, people love to say devil's in the detail. I like to say God's in the detail because he can deliver you from chaos if you really pay attention to the details. But a lot of times we don't want to do that because that's not fun. That's not sexy. Listen, most wealth that's really created is boring stuff. So if you want to get wealthy, get used to being bored. And I'm being sarcastic a little bit, but get used to not always going to the thing that's the hottest, flashiest thing, because the hottest and flashiest thing isn't always the most profitable thing.
That's true. The boring businesses, you know, you and I both listen to Ericka Williams, and she talks all the time about the boring businesses, but they are cash cows. And, you know, look. So Anonymous came back and said, I just started an LLC, but do not have a functioning business. But I'm trying to figure out what to do and to what extent I should jump out there. So again, Anonymous talked about the $100,000. What would you do? But doesn't have a functioning business, does have an LLC. What's your advice for Anonymous?
My advice for Anonymous is look at your formation documentations that you use to form this LLC. Know when your tax filings are due. Understand the laws of your state. I don't know what your state you're in, because the other reason why I'm not a big fan of people just getting LLCs is because sometimes they cost money to maintain in the state. If you're in Maryland, it costs $300 to renew your LLC. If you are in Massachusetts, I want to say it's $800 or $500. Same thing for New York. California is a whopping $800. And if you don't pay those fines, they will delist your business and say you are not eligible to do business. I have a couple of Cali clients, and they wound up on the basically you're no longer in business list because they couldn't afford to pay the $800. So again, many times it's better to just be a sole proprietor because the IRS is going to look at you as a sole proprietor anyway, right? So that's what I would be looking at. And then I would look at, because I know what you really want to know is like, how can I get to the money? How can I get to the money? What are your skills? What are you naturally inclined to do and talk about? What do you have a history and track record of doing? And then I would see if there's a marketplace to do it. Do you have people that are doing it? Anonymous, you know, what are some of the things you do now? Do you have Instagram? I would be really curious who you follow and why do you follow those pages? Because that could tell you a lot about yourself.
Yeah. So I will make a suggestion because y'all know I'm a business plan writer. I've been doing this for many, many years. If you have $100,000, do not invest it in starting your business. Do not. My suggestion, obviously, you do what you want to do. Instead, there's a woman I used to follow named Laurel Langmeyer who said, what's your fastest path to cash? And then my second question is, how cheaply can you get there? A lot of people think they've got to have the fanciest website. They've got to have the app to get started. They got to have this, that, and the third. I had this guy tell me, he called me a couple of weeks ago. He wants to start a cybersecurity consulting company. He needed $1.3 million. I said, for what?
Does he have a certificate of a cyber?
Probably. We didn't even get there because I'm like, for what? So.
That's valid. That's valid.
Yeah, we kind of went down that road. What do you need $1.3 million for to start like a consulting business, right? But
did he tell you why? Did he need staff?
Yeah.
Did he need equipment?
He needs staff for non-existent contracts.
Oh, so he doesn't have a contract or did not have one. Oh, okay.
No. And it would have been different if he had told me I want to have like my LLC ready in case I get a contract, because then we could have had that conversation. But he's like, no, I just want to have this money because I'm trying to do big things, which is understandable and admirable. But going back to Anonymous here, like Camari said, looking at your skills, looking at what's profitable. There are some people who are like, oh, do what you're passionate about. But if your passion doesn't give you any profit, then it's not a business, it's a hobby. And figuring out how cheaply you can get your first 10 clients if you're doing a service. The reason I say 10 clients is because if you're able to get 10 people to pay you for your service, then you have something that the market wants. And when person number 11, 12, 80 calls you and says, hey, do you have any testimonials? Well, you got those first 10 people that you sold to and you serviced. So that's always my suggestion with regards to that. And with that,
I would agree.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter. It'll be the last thing we talk about. So,
you're kicking me off? Do I have to go so soon?
Oh, well, you can stay if you want to, because we can talk about this mess with Juneteenth, the Walmart trademarking Juneteenth as well. But let's talk about Black Lives Matter. So first of all, we all agree with Black Lives Matter, the sentiment. We are questioning Black Lives Matter, the organization, right? And if you don't know what's happening, Patrice Cullors was the head of, there's two different Black Lives Matter organizations, right? She was head of one of them, and she has been accused of buying houses and paying her baby daddy $800,000 and
900.
paying $900,000 and paying her brother an exorbitant amount of money to be a security guard. And, talk about nepotism.
Well, with nepotism, but it just needs to be right. It just needs to be done right.
And Camari, tell everybody how much money they brought in that was on that tax return that you went through.
Almost $77 million.
So
32 million in investments. Yeah. I said 32 million in investments.
32 million in investments. Okay, so you did an extensive 2-hour plus session, and then you did another session. You went through one session, you went through just their tax returns. Tell everybody a little bit about why you did that and what you found like the money was spent on.
So why I did it, right? Why I did it is because I love Black folks, right? So I love all things Black. The reason why I do what I do is because I feel like I had a very interesting opportunity, but I grew up, my dad was an accountant, right? So I got to be around folks and money, and we weren't rich or anything like that, but I got certain exposures that I know a lot of people didn't have. And I kind of have a teacher spirit as well. And I always say that these are always learning opportunities. By going through these situations are learning opportunities, right? So the BLMs, I will cover a Jay-Z and a Dame Dash, not to slander or put down or take sides, but really just to say, hey, these people had $76 million. They raised $76 million. And there was only one person whose vote mattered, and they didn't have a board. That seems a little weird when you're running nonprofits. And I've worked with nonprofits a lot. And so a lot of times I work with nonprofits because, a lot of times nonprofits don't have any money, and I might volunteer my time or my talent or some of those things. And I always want to see them do better. So it's like, hey, let's examine this. Let's take the gems from this so we can know how to avoid the pitfalls when you get busy, when you get up and going. And so that's why I cover it. But when I covered this, when I looked at it, I was appalled and astonished and just like totally befuddled. $76 billion, almost $77 billion. They spend money on a home. They spent almost $6 million on a home that was supposedly a safe haven for Black artists and just Black folks doing stuff in general. but it would appear, no one has come out and say this, but it would appear that it was used with BLM money. Well, let me be clear with that too. We have Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, which is that one particular nonprofit, and then you have Black Lives Matter, the movement. Mm-hmm. They are not the same, mm-hmm. right? Because the local leadership and many of the chapters in like Philadelphia and Chicago, all those Black Lives Matter chapters have been calling for Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation to be accountable for the money since at least 2016. Mm-hmm. So there has been something going on for quite some time here. But again, when you look at where all this money is going and what they're doing with it, it's just like, wow, why wouldn't you hire expertise? Mm-hmm. Now, somebody said, one of my accountant friends said they should have hired an executive level person first. And I say, no, they should have hired a financial/accounting person first, mm-hmm. or persons. They could have devised the money, and then they could have hired the executive and gave the executive some marching orders with a budget. Mm-hmm. But they didn't do any of that, and they just kind of started to spend and do some things. And it's really crazy.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm sorry. I want to interrupt you here. Norris is saying, did she buy any blocks or communities? She bought her own block. She bought multiple houses for her, allegedly. I'm going to say allegedly because I don't want to get it for herself. She spent the money on a lot of other stuff, but do we have anything we see in the community that Black Lives Matter has done? I would have even been better with if they had said, look, we had 70 chapters across the United States. We gave $1 million to every chapter, and we told them to select something in the local community to do with the money. That at least I would say, okay, then what do we have in Chicago? What do we have in Milwaukee? What do we have in LA? But you can't even say that.
You can. They did give a lot. Yeah. So in my city of Philadelphia, they gave the BLM chapter, $500,000. So they did give a lot of money out. It wasn't anywhere near the 76 million, and which they shouldn't, right? Because when we're doing these things, right? When we're building, we have to build for capacity, we have to build for sustainability, and we have to think about becoming institutional. And I am on the board of the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, and I'm always preaching that to them. And I'm going to, because people aren't thinking about, hey, will this organization be viable when I'm gone and in the next 20, 30 years? But guess what? The Red Cross will be, without a question. The United Way will be, without a question, right? So we didn't see that kind of level of capacity building with BLM National Global Foundation, right? We just saw kind of reckless and abandoned. And to that point that the young lady brought up, was it was a $6 million home. It leads me to believe that it was brought in Patrice Culler's name, because they won't give, all the reportings that I read, won't give the deed information, which they shouldn't, because of docs and security. But now BLM
Candace Owens found her.
I don't want to talk about her. But yeah. But I'll say this, right? That property was brought in a lavish LA community. It wasn't in Compton. It wasn't in Watts. It wasn't in Long Beach, right? They could have found a lot, in my opinion, and this is subjective. You could have divided that in 10 or 20, went to major cities, and it impacted each one of these areas with a nice dwelling for creating safe spaces for Black people, Black artists to do their thing. And I think you could have seen a major difference, a major impact being made. But that's, again, it's a lot of times I always shake my head. I was like, they always give the wrong people the money, in my opinion. And I I get it, because the people who actually have integrity and character usually won't put themselves out in that manner. So it's a double-edged sword. But the other thing that I found really, really perturbing, mind-boggling, is that they had a white accountant. So, like, why does Black Lives Matter have a white accountant? You mean to tell me there's no Black accountants that could have done their 990 for them? So I was like, wow, this is really crazy. Now, I actually have the 990 up here as I look at it. They've given some money to like small organizations in Africa. They gave some money to BLM Canada. And I believe there were some things that were doled out in Mexico as well. But I would say this is kind of a travesty and really a wasted opportunity, because it's a black eye on the whole movement.
I'm sorry. I was saying it's an incredible wasted opportunity because of this whole scandal. It's one of the things that I wrote down. When the next organization steps up, even if that organization is honest and truthful and wants to be above board, they're going to have, I feel, an infinitely harder time getting people to donate, you know. The other thing is, I know you said that they gave $500,000 to Philadelphia. I'd be curious to know. Nerissa is saying, I haven't heard about any money here in North Carolina or back home in Wisconsin. We have so many issues within the Black community that it would be nice for us to hear like something that was done that wasn't just we gave money to this here, but we gave money to this here and it was distributed this way, and these are the fruits of, you know, that investment. Do we have anything like that?
I know there was like some kind of impact statement that they put out. I haven't had a chance to go through that. And that came out before the tax returns came out. And in that, they said that they raised 90 million. Taxes say 76 million. So
yeah. So where's the rest of the money?
There's a disparity there somewhere. I don't know if that was just bad copy editing, bad accounting, or just bad publicity. I don't know. But either way, it's bad. But you know, it just going off what we know, it's horrendous. It's horrendous. And I'm trying to look and see if there was anything done in Wisconsin. Because there is a whole list. But now I can't spell Wisconsin. So if you bear with me for a second. So, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like, and again, not to get too woo and go back too far in the past, but I feel like when we look at these situations, it's like Willie Lynch kind of planned all this out, and it just worked beautifully, and it just keeps working beautifully in a really evil way. Yes.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's unfortunate, you know, because I'm sure all of us, all 55 of us here, you know, if we had $76 million, we could come up with a plan and like strategically, you know, put that money out there and I feel have it working in the community and make it impactful. And I also feel like it was kind of a once in a lifetime thing that happened that unfortunately was, you know, was wasted. And I don't know, I have not heard of any like criminal charges against Patrisse Cullors, but I do think her name is going to go down in infamy for this. Even if she tries to say that other people were taking money to or doing things to or whatever, this tire is around her neck. She's the only name I keep hearing.
Yeah, but that's just for that, right? If you look at Campaign Zero with D. Ray McKesson, a lot of them had a lot of money issues too. So across this whole Black Lives Matter spectrum, there's been money issues. But this is just a microcosm of what we kind of experience in our community, because a lot of times we feel money is evil. A lot of times we don't want to think about money. We don't want to deal with money. And so when it's time to really step up to the plate, we got an opportunity to really swing that bat and hit that ball and go for that grand slam, we strike out. And so
it's unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
So is there anything else you want to talk about tonight?
So I will say this. I will also say this though about Black Lives Matter. The Black Lives Matter global network. A lot of the people that they hired outside of the mother and the baby daddy were white-led firms. Now, some of them were progressive-led firms, but they were not Black-led firms. And so that's something else that really gets my goat as well, is that we have these Black organizations that are not unapologetically Black, but, and this might ruffle a lot of feathers, a lot of people in our community are not unapologetically Black. And what I mean when I say unapologetically Black is that if we're a Black organization getting Black money from folks, our first mandate should be to spend our money with Black organizations and Black people. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes that is not the case. And this just perpetuates this cycle of neglect and poverty and lack of opportunity that we're just giving our power away. And it's really, really sad.
Yeah, it is sad. It's a missed opportunity. It's unfortunate. I don't know if we'll ever see an opportunity like this again. Definitely, probably not in my lifetime.
Not in this generation,
yeah. I mean, I have another 50 years to live, most likely. And I just don't know if we'll ever see that. But I do believe, coming full circle to getting our money right, that there's so much opportunity within ourselves and within our own families, in our own communities, within 10K Project and what we're doing. And I absolutely believe that the answer to Black economic empowerment is from the ground up and not the top down. Because every time we've tried with NAACP, with Urban League, yes, they've done things, but it's still like, okay, but our communities are still struggling. So maybe we need to do something else, and it needs to be from the ground up, from, 10K Project, from what Ericka's doing on her channel, and Charles and Raphael are doing, and some of the other, Earn Your Leisure, and some of these other people that are really trying to empower people and figure out how we position ourselves to be successful. And even the people who are trying to bring back Black marriage, I'm a proponent of that, having Black families come back together, whether they're, husband and wife and kids, or extended family or whatever. You mentioned in your article about multi-generational living, being one of the guides to Black wealth. So again, I just really think that it's going to be a ground up thing.
It's not a grandiose thing. It's multiple simple things that we all can do, that we can say, hey, this company don't support us. And I got another company that down the street that does the same thing for the same price with greater customer service, and we should give our money to them. But let me just say this, right? Because I did pull up the grants list. So we got money going to Detroit, Elmhurst, New York, Brooklyn, Boulder, California, and these are all nonprofits. A lot of the Black Lives chapters, Black Lives Matter DC, 500,000 to DC, 500,000 to Boulder, 200,000 to Brooklyn, New York, 200,000 to Elmhurst, New York, 400,000 in Detroit. Bunch of money went to LA, like you have Black Lives Matter Long Beach, Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, both for 500,000. Black Lives Matter Gary, Indiana, 68,000. Black Lives Matter Philadelphia, 500,000. Then we got South Bend, Indiana, 505,000. So I don't understand the rhyme or reason and the rationale. I guess I have to jump into the impact statement to see if they gave that to be fair to them or not. But I don't know. It doesn't seem very strategic though.
Yeah.
At least not for a short-term and long-term benefit for the Black community. I can't, I don't see it. I could be wrong. I try to remain objective till I get all the facts, but I don't see it as of right now. I don't see it as of right now.
So the last thing I'm going to show everybody, just in case you didn't check your emails today, Walmart now has Juneteenth ice cream, and they have trademarked Juneteenth for ice cream. So all I'm saying is I don't shop in Walmart anyway. I ain't buying it. When I say I ain't buying it, I mean I'm not purchasing this. You can decide if you want to purchase it, but this is not Black owned. This is owned by Walmart. And, I have something else that I would say, but not on social media.
Say it. Say it.
I feel like if it was something around the Holocaust or something like that, they would not have dared to do anything like that and trademark it. There had to have been tons of people who were involved with everything from the strategic planning meeting to the design of the packaging to the manufacturing. And it's a slap in the face to my ancestors. It really is. And I hope no Black person is going to purchase Juneteenth ice cream. It just doesn't sit right with me. But, obviously everyone has free will. And to trademark it is really just a slap in the face too. So that's what I feel. That's what I feel.
I mean, I don't know how much time we have, but I do
we
have
as much time as you want to talk. I don't have anything else for tonight, but
no, I want to talk about this, right? Because I think you made a very interesting comment, right? One that I think we should think about. You said that if this was around the Holocaust, it wouldn't have matter. So then my question is, why don't we have that same kind of weight and pull as other communities?
Because we don't demand it.
Why don't we demand it? Because, what I come to is like,
it's
I feel like
men's fault. That's what they say online. It's Black men. Blame the Black man.
Yeah. Everything comes to that, right?
So, look, I'm not going to claim to know the entire answer to that, but I think that there's not enough of us that are loud enough and cohesive enough to make this a no-no. To the point where people wouldn't even dare to do this. There are certain communities out there where this would not be allowed. And for ours, it goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning of this conversation with Buffalo. We are unprotected. And the question is, what are we willing to do? I don't know.
I mean, but here's the question. You asked it, right? So would they have Holocaust ice cream that's swirled red velvet and cheesecake flavored ice cream?
Hell no.
They would never do
that wouldn't have even been put on the strategic planning board.
Then when you look at it, like they're kind of use the red and green, but they're trying to use blackish colors, right? I mean, when you look at it with the black hands, right, they're trying to clearly appropriate our stuff. Again, that wouldn't happen. And I feel like we should be asking ourselves, why isn't it happening? And maybe we're not doing enough.
Yeah. I mean, so look, we want to celebrate Juneteenth. Absolutely. But with trademarked ice cream?
This should not be. This should not go to the cookout, y'all.
No, absolutely not. I think this should be an epic financial fail for them. I mean, that's like the very least that this could be, not having anybody purchase this and let it all go to waste.
Oftentimes I'm deemed as radical. So like when Dove Soap did the whole bleach thing, I felt like Black folks should have departed from buying Dove. Categorically, they did not. With this, to me, we should not go to Walmart. We should go to Target or somewhere else forever.
True. It's already go to Target, so
Yeah.
thank God for that. But yeah.
But you know what? So Eddie B says promote a boycott. So I think we should get rid of boycott, because boycotts are temporary, right? Boycotts mean we come back, we're willing to come back to the table. No, to me, if we're going to send the messages like, you want to give us the middle finger, okay, you are now going to give you the middle finger money-wise for at least a generation. And we're going to say a boycott, right?
Yeah.
For at least. But who's going to organize? Who's going to be willing to be organized to do that? Because there's sacrifice with organization as well. So
I'll
that's just my thought.
I'll actually one-up you on that. Walmart, outside of McDonald's and Wells Fargo Bank, Walmart is one of the biggest sponsors of a lot of Black events out there. So not only losing money for a generation, but not taking sponsorship out, because that'll be the next thing that happens is Walmart will go to 8 different conferences and say, oh, we've created a new fund, blah, 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 blah. Are we prepared not to take that money, that sponsorship money? So, what I'm saying is there's a lot of ripple effects.
No, I got you. I wanted to ask you though, do you watch Atlanta at all?
Mm-mm.
So if anybody's unfamiliar, Atlanta is with Donald Glover. And it's kind of a story about a rapper by the name of Paperboy. Donald Glover is his cousin and manager. They have like all these other outside people in there. They are on tour in Europe right now. This is like the 2nd or 3rd season.
Okay.
There was an incident in Europe with all these issues and wearing blackface. And so they went to all of the quote unquote leaders and asked them what they wanted. And so many of them said they wanted clothes and they wanted all these superfluous things that really had no merit, had no bearing, had no way of helping the community. But the quote unquote select Black folks, because that's what you're talking about, right? The select Black folks that get the sponsorship dollars were willing to say, no, y'all, we can't do that because they gave me these sneakers or they gave me these jeans. And so at some point we have to say, no, take that money, shove it up your tukish, and if you are with them, you can't be with us. But I know, again, that's a little too radical for some folks.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. There may have been a time when somebody brought up the Montgomery bus boycott where we did not do that, or even I rewatched A Different World, the entire 6 seasons. I did that about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And there was an episode with Kim. Kim was going to be the doctor. And they had an episode where they were talking about apartheid in South Africa, when apartheid was like really enforced at the time. And Kim had a scholarship from an American corporation that did business in South Africa, full ride scholarship. She would not have had to pay student loans or anything. And she gave up the scholarship because they did business in South Africa. Like, even though that was like one person, it was to signify like, what are we willing to give up to really help each other?
Right.
And
I mean, think about this. How many of us should not participate in be Rhodes Scholars? If you really understand the legacy of Cecil Rhodes. Mm-hmm. And it's, because on the other side, somebody's going to say, well, that money can be used to send somebody who's going to be a proponent and fighter for our community. Maybe. The question I would always ask, though, do they have enough cultural competence and cultural foundation to do that? Because we don't talk enough about culture.
Yeah.
So I think that's a major issue in my opinion. It all comes back down to integrity.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it all comes down to integrity.
It comes down to integrity. I also think it comes down to ownership as well, because the other communities, whether it's the Jewish community, the Asian community, even the Latino community, they own their businesses. You know, there's a certain amount of economic self-sufficiency that they have that we unfortunately do not have. And because of that, they are able to move in different ways than we aren't. So let's take the Asian hate bill, for example. Joe Biden comes in and boom, within however many days, they've got an Asian hate bill, right? Well, that came from them 30 years ago, building up an economic base. They don't have the numbers with regards to the numbers of people that we have or that the Latino community has, but they have the economics. And I personally believe they were contributing to the right politicians. And when they got in there, you know, they said, okay, we got you in here with the dollars that we have. This is what we want. And it's, again, very difficult for us to turn down Walmart dollars if we don't have an economic base. If and this goes back to the Buffalo shooting as well. If we can't even go to our own grocery stores in our own neighborhoods without having safety concerns.
Many of us talk about ownership from the physical and tangible. I also like to talk about ownership just from the non-tangible, right? They also own their culture, right? That many people won't look at this, but when you look at Jewish folks, and I don't want to get into the race versus religion, right? That body of people, many of them had nothing. And many of them were poor and they were destitute, but they had their culture and they clung to their culture and they clung to each other despite everything else. And I think that says a lot. But, you know, a lot of times and I'm not disagreeing with you, right? I'm just kind of piggybacking off of you. A lot of times we are only interested in the tangible. And when it's time to look at some of the other intangibles, right, that really have a lot of value, like IP is probably more valuable than all the properties in the world, you know, the IP that's owned by these corporations. But we can't really get our minds around it because it's intangible. And so, but if we really start, in my opinion, start taking ownership of our spaces physically, economically, politically, I think things would change around. But you have to have a mindset of ownership, right? You have to say, okay, this is my block and it's not going to be dirty anymore, right? These are my children, the children on this block, not just mine. I want to show them all love. And so again, I always go back to Willie Lynch because I feel like, and I know Willie was a fictional character, that's not lost on me, but that ideology and that training has been so inbred in us and we haven't figured out how to break it that we can't get to true ownership, which is money and the other intangibles that, you know, you can't do. There's certain standards we have to have. Again, if this were to happen with the Jewish community, the ADL and the JDL would come right out and say, this is defamation. This is hilarious. And they would not spend money with Walmart at all. And again, you know, I get a lot of flack. A lot of folks give me flack because they say, Camari, you're always talking about the Jews. I said, yeah, because if you really look at their stories, there's a lot of parallels there. Yeah. And I don't want to mimic them, right? I don't want to mimic anybody because we are special and we have our own genius, but strategy, tactics are tactics. And if it works, it works. And can we use it? Yes or no? And, you know, I want to go with what works.
Yeah. So, Beulah wrote in here that we will not take the action of the 60s when people stopped riding the bus.
For
And
181 or 182 days.
Say that again.
Montgomery lasted for like 181 days or 180.
Oh, I thought it was over a year.
It was. That's why
Yeah.
I just stopped. It was longer than that.
Yeah, I thought it was over a year that they did that. W.B. Du Bois talked about the talented 10th, and I don't know everything about Du Bois versus Booker T. Washington, right? But of the little bit that I've read and I've heard and I understand, there was, of course, this idea that the talented 10th would be able to get the education and then would be able to provide job and economic opportunities to our community. I'm beginning to think that maybe there needs to be another talented 10th created first, and it may not be called the talented 10th, but who are the 10% of people that are willing to kind of stand together and say, these are our core cultural, fundamentals.
This is our agenda. This is what we
This is our
on.
agenda. This is our core fundamental.
Yeah,
even though you may not agree with every point on the 10-point plan, nobody will ever know it. This is a 10-point plan. No, I don't agree with number 9, but you know what? If somebody asks me, do you agree with it? Yes, I do, because I'm here for like whatever this is, right? And we talked about the restoration of the family before, and I understand that not everyone's family is traditional. So, but what can we do to stabilize our children? What can we do to increase the education in our kids so that they're able to compete? What can we do to start our businesses and to be able to compete economically, socially, to have worldwide influence, to not sell Africa off? I don't know what to do with that.
But most Black people here don't think they're African. They think they're American.
Well, we're ADOS, yes, but I still read stories of what's happening in Africa, and I'm like, but why? That's like the most mineral rich place. And I heard this, there was a quote from Vladimir Putin, who's like, the Africans are not smart people because they have all of these natural resources, and we're able to come as white people and just take it. And that wasn't his exact saying, but that's basically what he was trying to say. But it's just really sad. It's really, so going back to the talented 10 thing, kind of having, I don't know if it's the 10-point list or whatever, maybe it was what Ice Cube was starting, but to have 10% of us get together and say, this is what we're doing, and other people, jump on board.
We need early adopters. We need the early adopters, right?
The early adopters, yes. Yeah. And that's actually only 2.5%. That's the early adopters. With 2.5%, you can change, like there was a study that Eric Spence introduced us to that said, if you have, it was either 2.5% or 3.5% of people in a country adopt a certain philosophy, then it changed the entire country. Like they were able to get from, you have this group of people and then the law changes ultimately. It was a sociology experiment that they did.
Well, you can see that with civil rights, because Black people were roughly anywhere between 10 and 13, 14% of the people. And we pushed that. We were the early adopters and pushed it on. But let me correct myself from earlier. I said 181, 182. 381 days for Montgomery, for the Montgomery bus boycotts. It was 18 months. And I actually agree with both Booker T and Du Bois. And I believe somebody in the comments just said it. Yeah, Kevin Brooks just said it right. You need both. We have to stop looking at these looking at everything as an or, and oftentimes they say and. So what people really don't understand with Du Bois is that Du Bois actually was for the same things Booker T was for, and Booker T was kind of for the same thing. That was Du Bois, when they just had different ways of communicating and going about it. I mean, People say Booker T wasn't for education. The man was at Hampton first, and then he helped found Tuskegee, greater institutions, right? He was just saying that we should be able to have, be so valuable, kind of like linchpins in the door, and trade that we will be undeniable. People will need us. And Du Bois was saying that, hey, even if we do that, which we should, we had to be able to protect ourselves in the law, and protect ourselves in politics. And again, typical, a lot of times, Black fashion. We do what we do, and we kind of self-implode, and we fight amongst ourselves, sadly.
It's sad. Charles is saying here, we only listen to athletes and entertainers. We got to start there. So, my whole thing my whole thing, I don't know if this was in regards to what I said about Ice Cube, but my understanding is that Ice Cube went to Dr. Sandy Darity and a couple of other people in order to create his contract with Black America. So I don't know, I don't think I don't think he started that. I think that he picked it up and he ran with it. And also it was the Democrats that didn't want to meet with him. I know going back to politics, but y'all, so.
No, listen, I think, and I'll push back on you. I think if we have to look at politics because it controls so much of stuff. So if we're talking about the Black wealth game and we're not talking about politics and everything else that goes into the pot, we're kind of leaving some things off the table. And I'm not saying that we have to be Democrat or Republican, right? It shouldn't be that. If you look at what the Jews do, like you said it, they invest on both sides of the aisle. Any people, right, that are successful in this country hedge their bets and they go on both sides of the aisle. But again, it takes a lot. It takes a lot. But I'll say this about Ice Cube, right? I love Ice Cube. I love what he used to do with the Nation of Islam and what he was doing with cleaning up. But for somebody who is as smart as Ice Cube, I can't understand him and Puffy. I'm gonna throw Puffy in here too. Mm-hmm. I can't understand why they would wait till the election year to start doing anything. Ice Cube and Puffy's, have the opportunity to mobilize and organize, and neither one of them have done that way before the presidential election. So that gives me pause to say any of them are really genuine in what they're trying to do. Because if we're serious, right, if we're really going to do anything, it's going to take years of organizing and mobilizing and getting on code and understanding. It's not just, I'm going to jump out and I have this 10-point plan and I'm expecting to get audience. Well, excuse my language, who the fuck are you? What money have you given? What policies have you given? Who have you directed? Who have you helped get elected? Right? What have you done? Why are you worthy to even be listened to? And so I know, and again, that's no just, I do love Ice Cube and I even love Puffy, right? But those aren't the questions that we're asking ourselves when we get caught up in the celebrity of this thing. And I think that's really, really sad.
I agree. I agree with that. So we have been on here over 2 hours, so we're going to wrap it up now.
That's my fault. I'm sorry.
No. We got into the whole BLM thing, and then you gave us more of your time, so we appreciate that. Camari has been great. Everybody, throw exclamation points in the chat so that we can thank Camari and give you any final words tonight. So we talked about the recession, we talked about stocks, business, debt reduction, financial coaching, BLM, talented 10th. We talked about all sorts of stuff tonight, but the original topic was getting your money right. So final words with regards to that.
I would say what you're doing here is on board with getting your money right, because at the end of the day, it's my opinion that relationships will always be greater than money. Mm-hmm. And if you have great relationships, what the 10K project is doing and fostering and promoting, you'll always be able to get money, right? Because your brother or sister might have a little bit more than you. You might have an idea and you can say, hey, can you help me do this? But you got a good plan. It's not just something you dreamt up the night before. You put some thought into it and you thought about the way that you can take it from a thought to an actual reality with execution. So I would just say, keep doing the work, y'all. Y'all doing the work. This is very meaningful, and it's very, very important because we absolutely have to build our Black businesses, right? It's imperative. It's actually like a no-brainer it's a no-brainer that we even have to have this conversation. And it's so sad, but the reality is we do have to have these conversations, and we continue to have these conversations. And I know many of us feel Black people talk too much, but great communication is a superpower. So I would say, keep talking, keep working, talk some more, right? Try out more things, talk it out again until we get it right. So, but again, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So yes, we always bring Camari back like every 9 months. I'm in his email, like, you got to come back. So also, everybody, I put Camari's YouTube channel in the chat here. Please go subscribe to his YouTube, listen to his catalog, go and join his lives. Tawana and I are very, very advocate proponents of Camari and all that he's doing. So thank you, Camari. Thanks, everybody, and have a blessed evening. And we'll see you tomorrow night for the Bet on Black pitch at 8 p.m. Take care. Bye-bye.